Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakha Kodash. Um, this is going to be a response to Apostle Tahara's video he did on February 6th, HR 1242, Revelation 13:9 and 10. Today's date is February 8th, 2018. I wanted to do a response to this video. I got somewhat of the information that I need. It's just going to be something brief. But pretty much this bill that Apostle Tahar brought out, HR 1242, what they're pretty much doing is they're just pretty much just downplaying slavery, like it was voluntary, like it was no big deal, they, like Esau always does, like the scriptures say, whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. And that's how they look at this whole thing. There was just Jake was just victims of circumstance. They just came over here for a better life, this, that, and the other, blase, blase. But on this lesson, what I want to do is I want to focus on a couple of legal terms, a little something in the Constitution and a few scriptures, to show you that there was going to come a time in these times now that we were going to escape from the grip of Esau, mentally, until Yahushua liberates us. Because right now we're all slaves. We're all pretty much voluntary slaves, but it was really involuntary because it began, once we were born from our mother's womb, and our mothers signed for us a birth certificate and put our names on it, and those certificates, which are printed on banknotes, is actually traded on the stock exchange. They're called warehouse receipts. And pretty much that's the first contract that was signed for us. That made us slaves to this system, because this system went from involuntary servitude to voluntary servitude. When Lincoln so-called freed the slave, which through the Emancipation Proclamation, which is basically, the emancipation means to take from one owner and give to another. So they just pretty much transferred the slaves from the South to the North and made them contractual slaves. I have here, this is the Black's Law Dictionary. Now, when you go online, it doesn't really come through because they keep abridging it, because they keep taking key points out of these law dictionaries. All right, the one I have is here, which I believe this is the 6th edition. Yep. And I'm going to be reading out of the actual book that I have. Now, you brothers don't have to buy this. You can go online and get whatever you need. This I wouldn't even bother buying the damn book unless you get it for $1 or $2. If you find it in somewhere where you can get a good deal for it. But I'm gonna read something out of here, and then I got an article and part of the Constitution and a couple of scriptures. So when you look up this particular book on page 525, you look up the word employee, because what you have here, everything, like I said, is done through contracts now. Matter of fact, before I read that, let me just read this. This is Article 13 of the Constitution, the 13th Amendment, right? It says slavery and involuntary servitude. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So it says slavery nor involuntary servitude. But now what about voluntary servitude? They didn't put that there because that's really what they wanted to do. And everything Esau does, he does it so-called legally, through legislation. So then the Amendment 14 or Article 14, it says rights guaranteed, privileges and immunities of citizenship, due process, and equal protection. And that's the reason why this guy, Martin Lucifer King, as we call him, he was out there parading for so-called civil rights to make the Israelites here 14th Amendment slaves, pretty much. It says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Now, how are you subject to the jurisdiction thereof? When you sign away your rights, when you take on a birth certificate, when you take on a social security number, when you take on a driver's license, all these things that they tell you that you have to do in order to be so-called legal in this society. That's what binds you, because your signature binds you to these contracts that they put out there. That's why when you go to the court, they are able to convict you, and make you pay fines, because you have what's known as a straw man. And a straw man is just a fictitious entity. That's the reason why it's in all capital letters. Your first and last name are in all capital letters. It's a fictitious entity that is represented in the court by the court itself through these legislations. Because you yourself, because a proper name is the first letter is capital and the rest is lowercase. That's that person right there, that entity cannot be brought into a court, because that court does not have jurisdiction over the person. It has to create a fictitious character that it can rule over and impose its legislation upon. That's why they have what's known either nom de guerre, which is name of war, or the straw man, which is when you look at any document you get from a court, is always all capital letters, because basically we're corporations, we're commodities, no different than things that are traded on the stock exchange. So that's how you become subject to the jurisdiction thereof, by contract. It says, are citizens of the United States and of the states wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of the citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. And then you read on through here in the fifth, number 5 here, the Congress shall have power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. Why? Because now that your name or your signature is put on these on these pieces of paper, which are contracts, now they have jurisdiction over you, and they can impose or enforce these laws. So that's how we became we became voluntary slaves through contract, and everything Esau does is by contract. Okay, so in the Black's Law Dictionary, when you look up the term employee is a person in the service of another under any contract of hire, express or implied, oral or written, where the employer has the power or right to control the direct and direct the employee in the material details of how the work is to be performed. Riverbend County Club versus Patterson, Texas, Civ App 399 SW 2nd 382-383. One who works for an employer, a person working for salary or wages. Generally, when a person for whom service are performed has right to control and direct individual who performs service, not only as to result to be accomplished by work, but also as to details and means by which result is accomplished. Individual subject to direction is an employee. So pretty much, you're under a master, because they're the ones that's telling you what to do. Now, when you read on further, it says servant is synonymous with employee. And they give you another court case, Tennessee Valley Appliances versus Rowden, 24 Tennessee App 487. And then they give you the rest, 146 SW 2nd 845 848. However, employee must be distinguished from independent contractor, officer, vice principal, agent, etc. Why? Because they are their own master, because they're hired as a separate entity, All right, so when you jump down to the word employer, it says one who employs the service of others, one for whom employees work and who pays their wages or salaries. The correlative of employee says see also master. So pretty much an employer is a master and an employee is a slave. All right. Here you have an article, inalienable rights. Why do you have to pay to live on the planet you were born on? I thought I wanted a job. Turns out it was just a paycheck. I just wanted a paycheck. Employment. When a person works for an employer as an employee using a SIN or tax file number for such employment, he has entered into a master-slave contract with his employer. And we're still under a master-slave contract. That's why we're still slaves under this devil. And that's the way this devil has us in perpetual slavery. And he won't let us go. Just like you go to ancient Egypt, the ancient Pharaoh had us in slavery and he wouldn't let us go. But this devil did it through contract, so he can say, well, they did it voluntarily. Yeah, but you never explained the terms of the contract. This is called a contract of service, servitude, slavery. In fact, his corporation, artificial person John Doe, is working for the employer as an officer. The natural person John Doe, see, so you notice John Doe here is all caps. This is the straw man. It says the natural person John Doe acts in the capacity of a legal representative for the corporation, artificial person John Doe, and is expected to perform the duties demanded of the slave John Doe by its employer. So we pretty much are still slaves to this devil. It's just that we don't know. Jake didn't know that they were slaves because they weren't actually had a whip on your back. But if you look at it, really, there is a whip on your back because you have to perform. You have to push out, a certain amount of stuff that they want, and they can demand of you to work, overtime and do this, that, the other. It's required of you. Otherwise, your contract is diminished, or taken away, or you'll get fired. All right, but the way that we're under this devil right now, the way he has us, the Lord made a way for us to escape it right now mentally. That's why Yahweh said, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Because mentally we're free, although physically we're still slaves. This is Isaiah chapter 10 and 20. It says, and it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel, and such as are escaped of the house of of Jacob, shall no more again stay upon him that smote them. Why? Because Jake relies on this devil for everything, because that is part of the curse. Deuteronomy 28:47, because thou servest not the Lord thy power with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. You want a job, you want a woman, you want whatever, you got to go to this devil for all of these things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. Now, this was an actual physical yoke of iron at one time. Now, the yoke of iron was taken off of our necks and put onto our minds. As we're reading here, it says, and it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel and such as are escaped of the house of Jacob shall no more again stay upon him that smote them, but shall stay upon the Lord, the Holy One of Israel, in truth. Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Why? Because the Lord was going to open up our minds and show us through this devil's deception, and he was going to peel that veil back and allow us to see the truth. And that's the reason why we're able to see through this man's BS. This is Isaiah 45:19. I have not spoken in secret in a dark place of the earth. I said not unto the seed of Jacob, seek ye me in vain. I, the Lord, speak righteousness. I declare things that are right. Assemble yourselves and come, draw near together, ye that are escaped of the nations. So the ones of us that the Lord woke up to escape this mental slavery, this is who the Lord is drawing. He said, ye that are escaped of the nations, they have no knowledge that set up the wood of their graven images and pray unto a God that cannot save. And they're praying to sweet Jesus that cannot save. So they're staying upon this devil. And the Lord said that the house of Israel shall no more again stay upon him that smote them, but shall stay upon the Lord, the Holy One of Israel, in truth. And there's only going to be a remnant that's going to get that. There's only going to be a handful of Israelites that's going to get that, because there's only a remnant of Israel is going to be saved, as we had already read about the remnant. All right, so now let's jump down. See right here, see the remnant of Israel. Let's jump down to the 27th verse. It says, and it shall come to pass in that day that his burden shall be taken away from off thy shoulder, and his yoke from off thy neck. He's talking about that was a physical yoke, but now it's talking about this mental yoke. And his yoke from off thy neck, and the yoke shall be destroyed because of the anointing. And what is the anointing? The oil. What is the oil? This knowledge. So that burden or that yoke that was on our minds prior to us waking up to the truth was taken away. So no longer are we mental slaves, but we're physical slaves now. I'm sorry, I mean, our bodies are still in this man's possession in his hand, and but our minds are free. But this is what the Lord said concerning that. This is the book of Exodus 21:16. It says, and he that stealeth a man and selleth him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death. So this devil got judgment to come to him. He's going to have to pay with his life because he still has us in captivity under his yoke. And one last scripture, Revelation 18. And I'll start at 11. Revelation 18:11, and the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. And you better believe that these birth certificates are traded on the stock exchange. You know, it says the merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones and of pearls and of fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and all the iron wood and all manner of vessels of ivory and all manner of vessels of most precious wood and of brass and iron and marble. And you see all this stuff, all these commodities traded on the stock exchange. You got orange juice, you got pork bellies, you got beef, you got whatever, chicken, everything is on there, including people. It says, and cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and beasts and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and souls of men. You know, so you have slaves, which are contractual slaves here, and you have souls of men. Why? Because you have these entertainers that sell their soul to this devil, you know, for a price. You know, so we're still in the hands of this devil. So what did the Lord say concerning that? He said, Exodus 21:16, and he that stealeth a man and selleth him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death. So I don't give a damn how nice you try to put that bill, HR 1242 bill, or how nice you try to paint slavery, try to paint it as a benevolent thing, that it was set up to help Jake that was in Africa come over here and settle in. You can't fool the Lord, man. You can't fool Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. You know, you did the crime, boy, you do the time, boy. You know, because the Lord's going to destroy you, man, you know, for what you did to the people of the Lord. You know, so with that, you know, I hope you brothers have been edified. Until the next time I say shalom.